And today's theme is the idea of resistance versus allowing. Resistance is one side of the coin and allowing is the other. How can we turn from resisting to allowing? And why is it so hard for us? We spend more time resisting than we do allowing. Hello and welcome to the Awakening Process 101 podcast. My name is Pernilla and I'm here with my best friend Louise and this podcast is about emotional health, spiritual transformation, and the meaning of awakening in the context of our modern lives. And our goal is that our conversations and our exploring will plant seeds for you on your awakening journey. And today's theme is the idea of resistance versus allowing. So resistance is one side of the coin and allowing is the other. And the goal in life, right, is to how can we turn from resisting to allowing? And why is it so hard for us as human beings? Because if you think about it, right, Louise, you agree with me here. We spend more time resisting than we do allowing, right? Why is that? And what are some things that we can do to begin this process of letting go, surrendering? We talked about this before, but it's just a very interesting human condition that we are programmed to say no and resist.
Thank you, Pernilla. I think it's so interesting. No, I mean, listen to this. Why are we so resisting to everything and especially change when we know that the only thing there is consistence is permanent change? Like everything is changing. The season is changing. The weather is changing. We're aging. We're getting older. So why do we want to hold on to something all the time? And that's why I love when you came up with this topic, and you also wrote a blog about this that we're going to dive into. But I think it's so when I have
Oh,
moments,
interesting.
and when I have moments where I kind of how do you say it, crack the nut, or when I can feel that I turn in the key, and when I really can feel how I allowing, things become so much more easy. It's like I'm my body is in ease and my life is in grace. It's and an interesting part also that we would turn back into when we talk about your blog is that resistance versus allowing. Allowing is the resistance can also be with things that are good. We resist to let go of it because we want to hold on to it, but it needs to let go even the good things. And we also
That's a good point.
and we need to allow also the bad things, because life on life terms are difficult, and life is not just good all the time. It's hard times when we lose friends, or going through a divorce, or things are not working out the way you wish to. So
I mean, that's a great point that you're making, that it's like also resistance of letting go of the things we like.
Exactly. It's important, right? Like it's so yes, definitely.
Yeah, so great. So, okay, we're going to begin with a quote from my
the yellow
favorite book.
From the yellow book, from the Bible
Yeah.
of Pernilla. I love it.
Yeah, the Bible, my Bible, Letting Go, The Pathway
Mm.
of Surrender from David Hawkins. And I was thinking about this last night, that I have read this before on this podcast, but of course I don't remember when, because I have no memory.
No,
But
and I think that we can repeat stuff. I mean,
yeah. And the funny thing is that it's the same, we have to be reminded. Human beings, we forget everything. So we're going to talk about this over and over and over again. But okay, so this is right at the beginning of the book, on page 8, and it's at the beginning of chapter 2, and he says, there's 2 paragraphs here, okay? Letting go, allowing, right, is like the sudden cessation. Cessation is the same thing as we talked about the last episode. It's the stopping or the relaxation of an inner pressure or the dropping of a weight. Letting go is like the sudden cessation of an inner pressure or the dropping of a weight. It is accompanied by a sudden feeling of relief and lightness, with an increased happiness and freedom.
Mm.
It is an actual mechanism of the mind, and everyone has experienced it on an occasion. A good example is the following, and this is where I was excited to share about this. You're in the midst of an intense argument. You're angry and upset when suddenly the whole thing strikes you as absurd and ridiculous. You start to laugh. The pressure is relieved. You come up from anger, fear, and feeling attacked to feeling suddenly free and happy. So, okay, if we summarize that, I think about how many times have you been like in an argument with your spouse and you're like going at each other, and then you're like, wait a minute, I could decide to just
Let go.
stop resisting. And then it's like, I remember times when I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. Right. I'm going to stick to my guns. Or I've had times with James when I was like, when we like literally start like smirking midway, like into our argument, you're like kind of like you want to start laughing, but you're like, but it's like, I think that we come back to this all the time. It's awareness. Like we don't even know, if we don't even know that we're resisting, which most people don't, then it's hard to change. But if it's like, if we can bring awareness to the fact that I'm actually resisting, and that's what I think that I wrote down all these questions yesterday. It's like when you can feel in your body when you resist, right? Or it's like it's emotions and bodily like you feel tightness in your chest, your shoulders are tight, you're resisting with your whole, it's like you're bracing, right? So when you feel that, can it be a signal for you to ask yourselves, what am I resisting and why?
But I love it. I love it. And you make it so clear and so simple. And I think that question, what am I resisting and why? And even sometimes when I ask myself that, I still want to resist.
Yeah. Yes. Because I think, I mean, I was thinking about this yesterday. I really think that it's the control of the situation that creates resistance. Like,
Mm.
I have to have it my way. And somewhere that's tied to survival.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I don't know scientifically, or, I haven't studied this in my thesis, but there's something about like, if I'm not right, then I don't matter, or I will somehow perish. And I don't know why that is, but it's like the explanation of the sort of gritty white knuckling about holding on, because that's the majority of the world.
It's so interesting. It's so interesting.
You're like, I've stunned you now.
Yeah, but you did. But still, we have talked about this before. But I think that it would be, for me, the pain that is the motivation to change and let go of the resistance. Like when
But
that resistance pain, yeah,
the
but that
emotional
could be
pain or the physical.
both, because it
Yeah.
depends on what I'm resisting. Because of course, if I have the physical resistance, like, oh, I
Hmm.
can't do this, I can't do this, is too heavy for me. Well, then I easily let go. I kind of realizing that there's no meaning for me to resist. I can't hold this door back to me, or I need someone. I need to ask for
Hmm.
help, or whatever.
Hmm.
Of course, when it's emotionally or mental resistance, it's difficult. First of all, I can't really ask anyone to help. Of course, I can ask someone to guide me, or coach me, or ask my therapist. But I need to do the work. He can't do the work for me,
No.
or I need to do the work myself. I need to sit with it. I need to
Hmm.
sit with it, talk to it, feel it, embrace it, look at it, and then it will let
Yeah.
go. But that could.
When you're talking, I just remember an example. And again, it's like the process of allowing for things to arrive as they do without resistance. It's aligned with a certain sort of like groundedness and stability. So I think that like through COVID, my whole surrender practice probably was not as as good as it could be, right? Because we were all so stressed out, and it was so much like fight or flight that I think that I just things would really set me off, and I would worry, and like everybody did. It's no biggie, we're human beings. But I remember we were coming back to America from Sweden, and during COVID, it was really hard to travel, so I had to like go. There was connecting flights and blah blah blah. And I remember the morning of leaving, there was talk about this big storm in New York. So there was like all over the news, this ginormous storm is coming. And so I'm like, well, what's going to happen with our flight? And it's like we're getting like alerts from the airline, like maybe you should
Were you going
rebook.
from Sweden to New York, or the other
Yes.
one? Yeah.
Yeah. But the storm was going to arrive in New York when we were going to
Yeah.
land. And I spent like, I woke up at 4 a.m. looking at all the weather apps, like figuring out the time that the plane would land so that I could, just complete insanity, right? Because of course we have no control over this. And then I just remember and I was already nervous because this traveling during COVID was very stressful because you had all these paperwork and like tests and, it was a lot of work. So I just had a moment where I was like looking at CNN or whatever weather app that I could possibly try to control the weather through, because I had to control the weather.
Of course.
And I just remember going, okay, this is going to be the National Day of Surrender. Today is the National Day of Surrender. So I just like, okay, I'm going to put away my phone. I'm not going to ask anybody about the weather. I'm not going to talk to the airline about the weather. I'm just going to put it away, right? So we get to Copenhagen to switch the flight because we had to switch flights. Everybody at the gate, and this is a big plane, we're all worrying about the storm. And right as we got there and we're about to board the second flight to New York, the pilot or whoever came on the intercom and said, "We're going to be leaving in 20 minutes. And just so everybody knows, we're going to be landing about an hour before the storm."
You're
And it was
kidding
like
me.
literally we landed, and then it was like all hell
Same.
broke. Like, yeah.
But I think one thing is interesting here, and that we
Yeah.
don't have to miss out, because when you start looking at all the weather apps, and when you think that
Oh,
you're going to control the situation, and you kind of
so
realize that this
awful.
is going to be the National Day of Surrender, I think it's a very fine line of taking responsibility, of checking out what's going on. Can I do anything? Can I have a plan B in
Hmm.
my backhand? Or coming over controlled? You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
that's a
Very important.
balance between that, right? Because
Hmm.
there's one thing to just shut out, which I would have done, shut the ears and just hope for the best. But then that's also not to take responsibility, to
No, I
maybe
completely agree.
so I think it's so interesting that you bring that up, because we need to
Well, I
also.
think that there's the fine line is like, for me,
Mm,
is when I go to the same app 3 times in a row and I've seen it already,
the
but
behavior addiction.
yeah, somehow I'm going to get a different answer.
Yeah, of course.
Like I've already checked, but I'm checking again
Mhm.
because somehow that's when you sort of go into like, and I think for everybody as an individual, the difference.
Yeah, yeah, you feel the difference.
Yeah.
You feel
Like
when
it's,
your body becomes
yeah. Yeah, like it's like when are you taking responsibility and when are you just resisting or
Yeah.
trying to control a situation that you really can't control?
And I think this is an important point also because when you say we will feel it, I think that the body never lies. And I think when we do things right and healthy, we have a sensation of being strong in our body. But when we overdo things or resist, we feel a weakness. We feel that the body becomes it's not the same embodiment. It's
Mhm.
not the same empowerment for. I think that's a nice
Well,
guide.
also, yeah, and I mean, I think that for a lot of people, that resistance and control is sort of like tightness at the upper abdomen, right? Like,
Yeah,
or in the
yeah,
stomach, you holding in the stomach.
yeah. Or
You know,
the
it
shoulders up
has,
in it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's, I have, but that's also like, that takes a lot of awareness to even know that that's happening.
Mm,
But I think that if we were to give a tool or talk about like what are the things that we can do to sort of start scratching the surface on like turning literally, like this is how I see it. We are turning from resistance to allowing.
mm,
How do we turn from one to another?
mm,
And it's the question, why? Because if you just ask, why am I resisting? I think it's like automatic that you're going to start wonder, like it's going to start loosening its grip on you.
mm. Yeah,
Even
yeah,
though
yeah,
even if we
yeah.
don't know the answer specifically, because
No, but
sometimes
and we
we
don't know
resist.
that. Yeah,
No, because
and that
fear is usually down there somewhere.
and you're so right in what you say because we don't know what's going to happen. But when we bring it up to the light, it's no longer an issue in that sense. Then we're becoming aware of it, and as long as
Yeah,
we're
you mean,
becoming aware of things,
yeah.
then
I mean,
then
bringing
they
it
will.
up to the light, as in
Yeah,
bringing it up to the awareness. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So and then we start in the transformation. Oh, you're so
It
smart, Pernilla. I love having these talks with you. No, I think
right.
it's yeah, you're wise. I wouldn't say smart, but you are smart too,
Yeah,
though.
no, I'm
But
not.
unfortunately, but wise is maybe
I
more
mean, I guess if you
from
read a
this.
book, the yellow book, like I read it like 17 times, at some point it's going to start. Some people can read that book once and they'll be like, yeah, I got this. But no, Pernilla has to read it 17 times. So,
I love it. I love
so
it.
I wrote down all these questions and
Hmm.
yesterday. So I'm just going to go through them because it's like if we can just have them in the back of our mind as we go through the day, right? Why am I
Yeah.
resisting? Why? Right?
Hmm.
What what am I scared of? Because that's usually they're combined.
Hmm.
What do I gain? What am I getting out of holding on to this? Because we do get something out of, like, we get some sort of pleasure of holding
Yeah.
on, right? How would I feel if I let this go? That one is hard, I think,
Mm.
because we don't really know unless we've started the process of letting go of things. We don't really know, but it's like David Hawkins says in the book, the dropping of a weight
Yeah.
followed by a feeling of lightness and freedom. Oh yeah, that sounds real good. That's what we want, right? And the last one, yeah, I mean, the last one is, why am I holding on to this belief? Well, that's the same thing as the other ones. So, there it is. Looking at what the pieces are behind the resistance.
Mm.
And I think that, like, sometimes, I mean, for me, lately, I've just been saying, I'll say at the beginning of the day that I'm going to be ready to surrender. So it's like almost I take it back a few steps that
But why don't
I'm
you
going to,
say I am ready to surrender?
yeah, sir, I am ready. Same thing. I think it's also like when we're caught off guard with things in life, that's when we resist right away because our default setting is to
Yeah.
resist.
Yeah.
So if I say at the beginning of the day, I'm going to be watching out for everything that I want to resist, and I'm going to be ready to surrender when it
Mm.
shows up. But that also, I mean, that's taking a lot of practice to get to that point. Because I'm sure
Yeah, but
something will
I
happen there.
think it's important to mention that nothing of this comes for free. I think it's for first, it's very, very important to practice and have a regular practice. And if we want to change something, there is scientifically proof it takes at least 21 days. So I think
Yeah.
that, you have 21 days of this diet, whatever, when we want to change a pattern, a behavior, anything, do it for 21 days and see what's going to happen, and have that it's an inspiration to it, have a willingness to it, because if we don't practice it, nothing will come. For we will not change, we will not deepen our awareness, or if we're really into this and you really want to work with it. And I don't say that we should do, I mean, it would be lovely if everyone could do an hour every day, but of course people have work, people have family. So I
Yeah.
think just being aware, having a moment in the evening, having a moment in the morning, and we're pretty much set, right?
I think you make it sound very easy.
No, but
Moment in the
I don't.
morning, moment in the evening. It's no big deal. Just make it happen.
Yeah,
Just
but
start letting go.
let it go. But I think it's easy. I think it's important to have a lightness to it, because if not, things becomes too heavy.
Yeah.
Then I lose.
Yeah.
I mean, I
If
think
it's too
that.
much work, then it's like, oh no, I can't do
Yeah,
this.
and then people, well, I can't, I can't manage it.
No.
I can't. I remember, shortly when I went into the Buddhism, I was like, I went to any meetings before becoming a Buddhist, and I said to myself, I'm not going to have another. I do one meeting every day in NA for so many years, and I'm going to attend Buddhist meeting as well. Where will I fit that in? There is no time for that. But if there is a curiosity, if there is a willingness, and then you have to adjust the things to what's good for you. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not meaning that I'm going to sit up and study Buddhist to 12 o'clock in the evening and sleep 2 hours. Then it's
No.
not healthy. Then it's not a good thing. So, again, stop resisting also the critical thought. Let it go. Do as good as you can. But I think
Hmm.
it's important to find kind of a routine, kind of your own ritual. And
No,
if
it's
that
like a
ritual,
practice.
yeah, as a practice. And if you want to find it 5 minutes or half an hour or an hour, but it's just
Yeah.
important to do it regularly, I
Yeah.
think.
I mean, the practice in itself is, once you've worked this on a couple of things, like I just, the example on the plane, and you actually start realizing that it works. Or not that just it works, as in I get what I want every time if I just surrender. It doesn't, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the feeling of lightness and freedom
Mm,
will be there if you allow for things to be as they come. So if we start small and notice the difference in ourselves, in our body, and in our emotional level of tension, then when you get like one or two times when you feel that lightness or feel that, then you're going to, oh, I can try this again.
mm,
So it's not like you just switch over your whole life. Once you see that it actually works, you can raise your awareness to keep doing it with bigger things. Or
mm.
do you know what I'm saying? Like the proof is
Yeah,
what's gonna guide you.
the
Yeah.
benefits that you get. But that's also why I think it's very good to journal things down. You don't have to
Yeah.
write an essay every time, but just journal things of how does it improve your feelings today, or things like that.
Hmm.
And then you can look back and you can say, wow, I'm actually moved. I moved in this month. I actually feel much lighter, much better. I meet all the life hard things in an easier way.
David Hawkins talks about like keeping a list. A few weeks ago, I was like writing down, what are the things that I'm resisting at the end of the day? And then I would say, why am I resisting? And then what is the emotion
Mm,
behind this resistance? Because remember, like all negative thoughts come from unresolved emotions,
mm,
right? From one unresolved emotion, we can create 1,000 thoughts
mm,
that just go la 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 in around in our heads. So it's like breaking down the underlying. He calls it breaking down to component parts. Like we have one big thing, we can start looking
mm.
at it from like little pieces and understanding what it is for each of these sections that we're resisting.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Listen, before we, I really want to drop into the blog that you have written also. If we
Okay.
could just, now we don't have that much time today, but Pernilla wrote a blog that I find, it's on her website, Awakening 101. And
Hmm.
can't you just briefly tell us a little bit about the blog and the background to the blog?
So this blog was called Resistance versus Allowing. And it really was from a parenting perspective. And it's one of the older blogs, which were more about parenting. And it's about how my daughter went through this phase doing something that I didn't think was so good. Like it was something about she was watching too much YouTube and she wanted to be a YouTuber. And I felt like I was resisting this because I wanted her to do something else. And at some point, I realized that what is it? Why am I resisting? Right? Like it started there. Why am I resisting? And then I realized that it was about my perception on her and my fear of my own things that I did when I was younger, that I project a lot of my own sort
Mm.
of trauma from
Projection.
my own. Yeah.
Mm.
So and then I made a conscious choice to allow her to do whatever she was doing. Okay, it was nothing dangerous either. Like it's different if it's like, she's like
Yeah, you can't. I mean, if it's
driving until.
anything, of course, if dangerous,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a whole
you're.
different thing. But this was like something that was not dangerous. And it wasn't, I mean, it was like just something that I didn't really approve of. And I made a conscious choice to allow and to let it go. And the thing is that in the end, just like I say in the blog, it took a little while, but then she had the freedom to find her own way to come back to, or like sort of get tired of this thing that I was opposing. And then she came back to her true self at the end. And it was a great, I work on this a lot, and I'm sure you do too, ladies. It's like with your kids, it's like, how do you let them find their own
Mm,
flower,
mm,
like
mm, mm,
without being like, well, did you do this and did you do that? And
mm,
what about this? And, because they're highly intelligent little beings and they're way
mm,
smarter than we were,
mm.
you know?
Absolutely.
They talk about like the crystal children and all that stuff like that. They just are more connected to their souls and they're much wiser than we were, being born in this age.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah. So how do we step out of the way and support them in the way we can
I
and
think what you
allow
just
for
said that
them?
is so important. How do I step out of the way and allow them to be themselves? No, but that is
Yeah. Yeah.
without just without not we need to hold space for them. We need
Hmm.
to hold space for our children because of course they're still children and they're not adults. So our
Hmm.
responsibility as a parent is to hold that space. But how do I do that without projecting my needs?
Yeah. No,
It's
but for me, it's like projecting, because still, like, even though I've come a long way, I still have a lot of like, not shame, but I feel bad about the things that I did between 15 and
mm,
27. And how do I sort of remove that sort of thinking
mm,
from projecting that onto my own kids?
mm,
Because to them, I mean, you think about all the things that we went through, and that's like completely out of the ordinary and not normal. And what are the chances that that's going to actually happen? But of course, that was my life, so I think it's completely. Of course, she's going to like do amphetamines like behind a bus on,
yeah, but
and
also that we
yeah.
both, yeah, but you never know. That's what I would like
Of
to
course
say,
not. But I'm
because
just saying, like,
both.
it's.
I was so anti drugs when I went to school, so anti, and I
Yeah.
worked against it. And then when we went to Ibiza, it all changed. So when
Sorry.
and when I look, Lily Piret, when I look at pictures you when you went in first grade, no one would ever think that this little cute Pernilla would
Yeah.
do anything
Exactly.
bad. And
Yeah.
I understand that fear, but what you're saying there is interesting. We can't project that fear on yeah, It's
And I guess that's why it's good to ask these questions that I just brought up.
absolutely,
What am I scared
absolutely.
of?
But I think a lot of things we're scared of being judged, because I can have exactly the same thing sometimes with Holland. It's like, oh, now she's saying an embarrassing thing, or she's not behaving like I want her to do. And I remember when we went shopping in Sweden, and she took one of these dresses, and my mother's like, oh, that's awful. You can't wear that. I was like, oh, mom, that's the story of my life.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
said to Holly, of course you're going to get that dress.
yeah, yeah,
And you're going to wear it. But it was still in her head that grandma didn't
yeah.
like that dress.
Yeah. So what are you scared of? What are you
Mm.
scared of in that situation?
But I'm scared of being ashamed. I'm scared
You're
of,
ashamed, or her, or she's ashamed?
no, of me, of course. It's all about me, myself, and I.
But what are you?
Mm.
What would you be ashamed of?
Of being judged, or being not normal, or
Hmm.
um, don't fit in.
Hmm.
Or why is your children behaving so well and mine are not?
It's interesting because I'm writing a book right now, and I just been the chapter that I'm writing is about Hanuman,
Mm.
right? My God, Hanuman. He's sitting right there, and all the events around meeting him, and the chapter comes back to this idea of being so afraid of being made fun of, because of course, where we grow up, if somebody would have been like, what are you doing bowing to a priest in, like, like a yellow robe outside a temple, with a red dot in front, between your eyebrows? So it comes back, and it's a lot about this sort of fear of being made fun of, fear of standing out from the norm. And I
Yeah,
think that we, like, I bring it back to Swedish culture, but I think it's like that in any culture where you're sort of all the same. You have that in Denmark too. Don't stand out, because then you're made fun of. And how big of an impact that had on my choices,
yeah. But can
you
I say
know?
one thing here? It's funny because I'm not afraid of standing. I was not afraid to stand out in school either. I mean, I remember how I dressed and everything. I was just completely what I wanted to wear. And I can
Mhm.
also feel that I have never been afraid to stand out as myself, but I'm afraid that she's gonna not
Who's
match with
she?
her clothes, but Holly, for example, or any
Uh,
any any of my family, and
uh,
not that, even I don't know, you also with my mom. I remember
oh,
this is a perfect example. I had 3 years of sobriety, I think, and that was
mhm,
supposed to be celebrating in the big place in Stockholm, and it
uh,
was winter, and my mom wanted to come, so I didn't celebrate 3 years because I got sober in May. So it must have been three and a half,
something
something.
else.
She
Yeah,
wanted to come anyway. She wanted to put on her fur. So she wanted to come in her mink fur. Are you fucking crazy? With all
yeah,
these recovering addicts, some with I was judging. Some came straight from the street. They had, they've
yeah,
been drinking for 50 years, and they could hardly speak. And I remember that was also an issue for me in the beginning, because we came from where we came from, and not a lot of people came into recovery from because a lot of people came from other backgrounds, but we were kind of the first one coming with the background that we had. And I was so ashamed for my mother coming in there with her jewels and with her fur coat, and and I was like, oh my God. And my sponsor said, this is not about her. Don't make this
yeah,
about you. Let her come
yeah,
as she wants to. And
yeah,
it's actually, and I
exactly.
haven't thought about, it's a little bit the same with Holly. And it's like,
But this is like she changed you from resisting to allowing.
completely. I had
Yeah,
to. But I did
yeah,
say to my mom, Mom, are you sure you're going to wear that to this NA meeting? We're going Narcotics Anonymous. Are you going to
yeah,
attend that? You know what it is?
yeah,
It's like, of
yeah,
course, it's cold outside.
yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, but
Oh,
for them, that they all wore fur coats.
yeah, at that time they did. Now they don't dare to.
No, now you, like, here in New York and LA, people like spray you with a fur coat.
Really, we can still wear them here in Denmark, though.
Okay. Good. I don't.
but not,
I would never.
I mean, let's go for the fake ones instead now.
Yeah. I'm one of those silly people who won't even buy leather coats.
Yeah, that's You know, I have my
It's
leather
too much.
pants. But I had them for 25 years now.
Oh, that's
Yeah, so
fantastic.
that's sustainable.
So, okay, so let's see here. We're
going to wrap up.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just knowing that I think today, if we're going to leave one tool, is just the question,
Yeah.
why? And if we can get just to why, then we're beginning. And it's a huge step into awareness of how we're reacting to life. If we just remember why, the question.
Don't you want to ask first, what am I resisting and why?
Yeah, that's fine. But I'm just saying, like, if we're going to remember something, then just like, why am I doing this? But today I'm going to ask myself, why am I reacting like this? What am I resisting? I guess what am I resisting is the first step, because if sometimes we don't even know what we're resisting.
But that's what I mean. So
yes,
by
exactly.
just asking, what am I resisting, and becoming aware of that, and then you could ask you why, and maybe you don't get the answer for why, but you have still the awareness to it.
Yeah.
And just trust the process.
Yeah. We're so funny.
Allowing.
The whole human race, we're just so funny. We just want to be like, no. Oh, God. If we all said yes.
Can I end just quickly with this?
Yeah.
I heard a story, and I don't know if it's true or not, but this is one of the stories when I took one of my teacher trainings in mindfulness. And that's just about allowing and resisting. But this is a way of how they catch monkeys in Asia. They put up an empty coconut, and in that coconut, it's a little hole. And in that hole, there is a banana. And when the monkey comes in and want to catch the banana, it puts it's not really a hand, but it is a hand. They put the hand in and grabs the banana. But when you close your hand, you can't get it out. So the human being can trap the monkey. So we also need to let go of the good things. To set yourself free.
Oh, I love
Take
that.
that little candy with you today.
That's so good. So like with the fist, you don't get out, but if you open your hand again,
if you let go of the banana. If you let go of the banana.
Oh, that's so good. So the monkeys didn't let go of the banana, though.
Of course not. We want it.
No. Yeah, we want that. We would have. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope something made sense and that you could bring something with you throughout your day and to shift your awareness just a millisecond of your day. Thank you for listening, and we will see you again.
Yeah, thank you so much. And remember, Pernilla has a YouTube channel, and I think it would be lovely to also have your comments in that YouTube channel. So
yeah, Awakening 101 on YouTube. It has a lot of short clips too. It's not just these long ones. It has just a gazillion things right now. So, okay.
Wonderful.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
See you.